journalists, Dari Odufowoko and Charles Ideho. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on TVC Breakfast this morning. We head straight to the papers and we start with the Daily Sun. Another recession coming. Governors warn. Yari, NGF chair, gives mid-2020-21 as the next period of economic decline. Federal government has spent 1.1 trillion naira on bailout, says Osinbajo. To the front page of The Guardian, Senate orders a minister agency to return 14.3 billion naira to Treasury. Warehousing of fund followed due process, NEPSA boss insists. And on the front page of the blueprint, Yari, I see economic recession in 2020. We'll be looking at that very soon. And on the front page of the Vanguard, federal government faults a UN agency over Nigeria's population figures. Nigeria's population now to 101 million UN population fund. UNFPA report, mere assumption based on 2006 census. NPC responding there. To the front page of This Day, brace for new minimum wage payment. Osinbajo tells governors, asks for collaboration with federal government on security. Yari warns on looming economic crisis. And then we head to The Nation newspaper. The major headline here says, Goje to Wamako Yari. I want to hear from Buhari. Pressure on APC to zone Deputy Speaker to North Central. Wike PDP governors disagree over House minority leader. And finally, on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, another recession looming, says governor. Well, gentlemen, the issue of recession seems to be all over the papers this morning, and I would like for us to look at it on the front page of the Vanguard, where it says federal government, no, not the Vanguard, sorry. It's on the front page of This Day newspaper, where the Vice President says a brace for new minimum wage payment. Osinbajo tells governors, and Governor Yari there saying that a looming economic crisis is perhaps 2020, 2021. There might be a looming economic crisis. I start with you, Charles. Well, I guess this is stemming from the new minimum wage, where the Vice President is saying that the governors need to brace up. There's been, the government has supported them when it talks about the bailout funds and also the Paris Club refund at the tune of 1.1 trillion naira. And here we are now with a new minimum wage. Is telling the governors to look for other ways of generating funds.
Well, I think whenever minimum wage issue, minimum wage mentioned Nigeria, it seems as if we have been served death sentence. But it's not supposed to be so. But the reason why it's so is that there's this disconnect between capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure. Okay. There's no relationship between both. You find that even either the federal government or state governments, when you look at their budget provisions every year, the recurrent seems to always be higher than the capital expenditure. And it's not supposed to be so, because it is the capital expenditure that should drive the recurrent. When your capital expenditure is very robust, you can drive the infrastructure. Infrastructure can now attract a revenue that you now use to buffer to show up the issue of recurrent. But what you have when money comes in, it goes straight to recurrent, and recurrent is consumption, right? So when you consume, you don't save to build. But when you, as I said, when your capital expenditure, you are able to show it up. You're able to channel it to infrastructure that will drive that. Is this as a result of
the structure that we find ourselves running with as
a
government?
It is a structure, but that's why we'll be talking about, even if you look at
diversifying the economy.
The economy is already diversified. It's already diversified. But the question is that, do we have the fiscal discipline to ensure that when money comes in, we don't look the way of recurrent first? When you also, when you do a
so I'll throw that question to you. And do we have that discipline?
Fiscal discipline.
Do we have it?
We don't have it. That's where we are.
All right, let's get Darius' view to this issue now. A looming economic crisis ahead of us, and we're also talking about an increase in the minimum wage?
I first want to start by agreeing with Charles that fiscal discipline, we lack it, and it shows. I don't want to marry the issue of looming recession with the recent increase in minimum wage.
Okay.
Though, when I read the report, and it was actually emanated from governors,
yes,
I was wary of the timing of this alert.
Okay.
We just, or is it, I didn't want to say it's an alarm. But it's actually an alert.
Why were you wary of the timing?
The timing, because if we just had the take home of workers increased, and those who should do the paying are now telling us, meanwhile, be prepared for
economic crisis.
But I like the vice president's response. He also told them, just go and brace up to pay. Yes, of course, it's obvious that when we have increase in wages, there could be inflation because the market forces will react. And the typical here in Nigeria is the fact that the traders, the market women, the only thing they understand is the fact that money has been added to what the workers get. Therefore, the price of nearly everything should also go up, either necessarily or unnecessarily. However, that should not translate into economic recession or crisis. That is why I said at the beginning that I don't want to marry. But the truth of the matter is that if we don't tidy up our finances from the national to the grassroots, we are going to continue to battle with the issue of crisis and recessions. Because, like he said, when we get money, we want to first take care of things that will not drive the economy, but things that are dependent on the economy. For example, nearly all the states battle with huge wage bills.
Of course.
When we started talking about this increase in salary or in minimum wage, I did say that one vital area we should look at is the issue of deadwoods in our civil service. This is one thing workers don't like hearing. But if we don't tidy up the workforce, do away with those who are not adding values, two things will not happen. One, the governors will find it difficult to pay. Two, we will find it difficult to solve our unemployment problem because fresh graduates will not have space to be employed.
But isn't that what this statement implies from what the governor said?
It's an indirect way of saying, look, we will grapple with the economic crisis, then we'll have to do the needful. I agree with them if that is what they mean. We need to look, there are some people in our civil service at federal and state levels and even local government. You go to some local government secretariat and you find people practically doing nothing.
But let's look at the statement from the vice president where he talked about looking at creative ways of generating funds, especially when it comes to collection of tax. And that burden is going to be borne by the people.
By everyday people. You see, when the issue of taxation, sometimes they are very, the government is quite unfair on the citizenry because if you don't empower people, how do you expect them to pay? For instance, if somebody who is employed, he knows that his basic issues about housing, transportation, and all that, they are quite taken care of in whatever comes to him. Even on his home, by default, I use that expression, he will pay taxes. Mm-hmm. Some of them, they will know, because when you deduct from source, he still has enough to go home with. But here, you are even grappling with not enough, inadequacy. Then you still want to remove from, and you are, somebody, okay, for instance, let's go to Kogi. Kogi, we understand that the people that have been old about 38 months. That's almost 3 years. Then you expect some people to now have the mind to pay taxes? No. So another thing I also look at is that in order for us to grapple with this looming reception, is that when we sorted, when we said we're able to arrest the reception, what did we do to put in place not for it to come back? Because if you look at the ratio, the price index now, when you tie it to the GDP, the gap is so wide.
Well, let me quickly say this. Quickly. The vice president in his call, I quite understand, was not asking that the tax people pay should be increased. Rather, he spoke about getting those who are not paying to pay. And that, I think, is a good call.
Those who are not paying, that do not have something to pay.
A lot of people are evading tax in this country.
But I do know that.
But we know that people evade tax.
I do
so
know
he is saying, stretch your dragnet to cover those who are not paying. Get them to pay. Increase your IGR. I mean, reach out to more areas.
But in getting to pay, you need to go. I think we need to really go down with this progressive taxation system.
Of course.
Hey, that's what
taxing
I'm
the rich.
for.
It's taxing the. Let's tax the rich.
No, then the poor. That is not to
because
say.
it's the poor that are suffering
tax
this
the poor less and tax the rich more.
But we even
let's leave it.
No. What I'm saying, I'm not saying not tax the poor.
Let's leave it
But
at
if you tax the rich, I'm sure you should be able to look for a buffer for the poor.
To create it, that's what he's saying.
To create a balance.
Extend your dragnet.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for your contribution this morning on the newspaper review. You're watching
For newspaper review, and I have with me two gentlemen, both journalists, Charles Ideho and Dari Odufowoko. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good to be here.
All right, let's go to the headlines in the newspapers this morning. The Daily Sun says, another recession coming. Governors warn. That's the Daily Sun. And the writer says, Yari NGF chair gives mid-2020-2021 as next period of economic decline. Federal government has spent 1.1 trillion naira on bailout, says Oshimbajo. The Guardian says Senate orders minister agency to return 14.3 billion naira to Treasury. The Blueprint says, Yari, I see economic recession in 2020. That's according to the Blueprint newspaper this morning. The Vanguard says federal government faults UN agency over Nigeria's population figure. The writers here say Nigeria's population now 201 million. UN population fund, that's according to UNPF. UNFPA says reports a mere assumption based on 2006 census, says NPC. This day says here, brace for new minimum wage payments. Oshimbajo tells governors, asks for collaboration with federal government on security. Yari warns on looming economic crisis. The Nation says, Goje to Wamako, Yari, I want to hear from Buhari. Pressure on APC to zone Deputy Speaker to North Central. Wike PDP governors disagree over House Minority Leader. We move to the Nigerian Tribune. It says another recession looming, says governors. Those are the headlines in the newspapers this morning. So we will move to the Vanguard and take the headline here. It says, federal government faults UN agency over Nigeria's population figure. Nigeria's population now 201 million, says United Nations Population Fund. UNFPA report mere assumption based on 2006 census, says NPC. Gentlemen, federal government faults UN agency over Nigeria's population figure. The last census was in 2006, and we're about 150 million.
Then at that time, even those figures were also contested.
Yes.
If you recall,
they're saying we are 200.
now they
1
say
million.
201 million. So that's
At
about
this
how many
point,
more?
we're 201 million.
Even the one you just cited, the 2006 figure that was done last, was even contested.
Yes.
If you recall that time, that even when federal government was doing that, Lagos State also
Had to redo theirs.
they didn't redo. It was
almost at
the same
time.
So
Yeah.
Lagos
There was
State
the figures were
they
not
were
the same.
So when federal government gave about 15 million for Lagos State got 20 million. So it was Lagos State felt that even federal government, they were also cheating the state of the actual figure.
Yeah.
Is it why I think we need to go back to this the accurate data gathering. The reason is simple. It helps every nation to plan. You know, you have in those days, when I was growing up, I used to hear of 5-year development rolling plan. We used to hear of MTEF, this midterm. But all these things, they are not being activated anymore. If you just rely on figures that are we just look at figures, we were about 200 million 2 years ago. By now, we should be. No. Are they capturing even the death rate? The one that have the insurgency have taken away, the one that banditry have taken away, the one that every people are dying every day on road accident, airplane crash, and so all these things are not being taken care of. If you look at even the death rate, I believe it's even higher. So therefore, I would believe that even in Nigeria, for me today, if we have to 170 million, we will not be more than that.
But if we have to talk about, if we have to refute this claim by the United Nations, does it mean we have to do another census? 2006.
Oh, we're supposed to be doing it 10 years, every 10 years.
We have ourselves to blame for what is happening.
For this.
Why are we refuting? If you must say something is wrong, then you must be presenting what is right. If since 2006, ordinarily going by our own design as a nation, by 2011, we ought to have had another census. If we had one in 2011, by 2016, we ought to have had another one, meaning that we've left like 2 censuses undone. And then we are now being told by a foreign organization as it is that this is your actual figure. And what are we saying? We are saying, no, this is projected. What are we using as a country to plan? Are we not also using projections? Are we not relying on 2006 census to say, be that as it may, we should be around, give or take? Must a nation that wants to be taken serious in the Committee of Nations be assuming its own destinies? Because these are the things, these are the figures we need to plan our infrastructure, our economic drive, our population attentions and all that. Yet, we don't have anything actual. So, in saying no, these figures are wrong.
Isn't it a concern
it should drive us to now say, okay, in the last 2-3 months, I've been seeing is it DG or chairman of the National Population Commission talking about how much it will cost us to conduct a fresh census. Okay. And what has been the response from the authorities? And I'm sure somebody somewhere is looking at the figures and saying, look, this is too much. But every 4 years, we conduct elections. And because it has to do with how politicians get in and out of office, they take that very seriously. The National Assembly will sit down and allocate fund to INEC. But the NPC is saying we need to, I think we should understand the importance of knowing how many we actually are.
Data gathering is a problem. It has always been a problem for us. Now, with this situation that we are in, who is recording what? Death rate, birth rates, who's recording?
Well, the thing is, the reason why data gathering in Nigeria is always a problem. It's not as if we can't do it. We can. We have the technology, we have the manpower, but because it's tied to politics of revenue sharing, politics of what goes to what state. Do you understand?
FAC,
Federal Allocation Commission, also we record it. Now we will say, oh, Kano is about 20 million. I'm just saying.
Give or take.
Give or take. So when you are sharing, you share based on that. Meanwhile, as we speak today, we don't even know how many people live in Kano.
Okay.
Oh, you say Jigawa is 18 million. So the reason why most cases they don't want these figures to be accurate is because everybody is taking from the center.
Okay, let me have your final thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, it's a call to get serious. That's how I see it. Now we've been challenged. We've been given a tag that we think is not ours. The best we can do for ourselves is come around the table, sit down, conduct a credible census and give ourselves the right tag. It's as simple as that. Because we actually need the figures to plan
for economic growth.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you very much, Charles Deho and Dario Dufoka. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Another recession coming. Governors warn. Yari, NGF chair, gives mid-2020-21 as next period of economic decline. Federal government has spent 1.1 trillion naira on bailout, says Oshibajo. And on the front page of The Guardian, Senate orders Minister Agency to return 14.3 billion naira to Treasury. Warehousing of fund followed due process, NEPZA boss insists. And on the front page of the Blueprint, Yari, I see economic recession in 2020. We move to the Vanguard now. Federal government holds UN agency over Nigeria's population figures. Nigeria's population now to 101 million. UN population fund. UNFPA report mere assumption based on 2006 census NPC. On the front page of this day, brace for new minimum wage payment. Oshibajo tells governors, asks for collaboration with federal government on security. Yari warns on looming economic crisis. To the nation now, Goje to Wamako Yari. I want to hear from Buhari. pressure on APC to zone Deputy Speaker to North Central. Wike PDP governors disagree over House Minority Leader. And finally, on the front page of Nigerian Tribune, another recession looming, says governor. All right, gentlemen, this story that I think would interest you is on the front page of the Nation newspaper. Goje to Wamako. Senator Danjuma Goje telling Wamako and Yari that he wants to hear from President Buhari. Now, these were some leaders in the APC that went to see him to respect the decision of the party and that of the president. But he's saying, I need to hear from the president what he wants me to do. Then he will know what to do. I'll start with you, Dari.
Well, if Senator Danjuma Goje wants to hear from the president on the matter of who should be the Senate president,
yes,
I'll be surprised in saying that as a loyal party man.
One wonders what he wants to hear from the president.
Before even wondering about that, is he telling us his loyalty is more to the person, not the president now, to the person of Muhammadu Buhari than to the party? Party loyalty should be over and above any other thing. You have agreed to be a member of a political party. It's like signing to be an employee of an organization. Your loyalty to that organization should be total. Either an individual is on that path or not. If the party says this is what it wants to do, you ordinarily should agree with the party. And then talking about wanting to hear from the president. The president was there when the national chairman of the party, Comrade Oshiomhole,
yes,
announced Senator Lawa as the choice of the party. President Muhammadu Buhari was seated right beside Oshiomhole when Oshiomhole announced Lawa as the choice of the party. The president did not object to what he said. He even stood up and hugged Lawa when he was asked to step forward. And we are all aware of the common saying that silence means consent. The president, by his body language at that event, already showed that I'm in tune with what the party's decision. At various occasions and events, the president has said he will stand with the party. And we are aware that the chief of staff to the president met Senator Goje. Leaders of the party
met with him.
If he does not believe that all these people's opinion represent the opinion of Mr. President by now, then I would say there is more to it.
Well,
and it's unfortunate.
Charles, let's get your opinion now, because the report is also saying that there are one or two observations that he has. Perhaps he feels only the president can clear that.
Well, if he's still waiting to hear from the president, he will wait until the chickens begin to grow teeth.
Really?
Which is almost impossible. Because whether the president body language and all that, it's already spoken. And I also want to look at it that there's no, that says why I said he's going to wait waiting for Godot. The issue is that the president will not be beaten twice. Once he said it was for nobody, was for everybody.
That was in 2015.
That was 2015. And in that same way, he became aloof as to who emerged as the leader of the executive. Now he wants to be involved. Of the legislature. You know why? Because if you have someone who is, I'm not saying he should, in the pocket of the president, no. People who are not too antagonistic to the executive, people who are not too activist to the ideas and all what the executive is going to do, is going to make even pushing policies easy. Because if the president brings a policy that is quite difficult in plenary, if he has somebody there who is more pliable, in quote, if you accept that, amenable to him, I mean, it will be better for him to fly the policy. And the president also wants to look at the issue of entrenching the supremacy of the party upon everybody. So the same president cannot be speaking to Goje to say, Goje, don't worry. I mean, going behind. No, this president that we see that has been beaten black and blue, we decided he will not do that.
And now having a united front before June, when the Night Assembly will be inaugurated, yes. Isn't that going to be a challenge?
It is something every member, every right-thinking member, every loyal member of the ruling All Progressive Congress should, desire. It is something that should be of great importance to the likes of Senator Danjuma Goje, because it is very important for the APC to lead the National Assembly. It is very important for the APC to have its men in charge of the affairs of the. You see, people talk about wanting to pocket the National Assembly, and I say no. It is about wanting to be sure that the executive and the legislature will work peacefully. Right. They don't have to work. They don't have to always agree.
Well, does that really guarantee both working together?
Yes, it is.
If your party controls or leads the National Assembly in the real sense of it, not the kind of leadership APC had in 2015.
Okay.
That was Jacob's arm and Isos' voice. If your party truly and sincerely leads the National Assembly, some policies that ordinarily should be difficult to push will come easy. That does not make the National Assembly a rubber stamp, but rather it makes it a friendly arm of government that would look well before condemning anything coming from the executive. And that's something APC should not joke with. But I don't see it being difficult because the leadership of the party this time is in agreement with the presidency and they are moving in a particular direction. And that should make it easy.
Quickly, Charles, your last word.
Well, my last word is that I think he said that Oshomole said it, even though he may not have said it, even though he may have said it tactlessly. No, not Oshomole. Ashwaji may have said it tactlessly that you either ship in or you ship out. I'm sure that is going to we're going to get there. People, some of those people, now, if they're not careful, they become irrelevant. And if they become irrelevant in the scheme of things within APC, they will shoot themselves in the foot, and that's also going to affect their political fortunes, like Goje and the rest of them. They better fight behind what the party is going to do.
There is even nothing tactless in that statement by Ashwaju. It's a fact. You either belong in or you're out.
All right, Dario Dufaok on Charles Indeho. Thank you for your time on the newspaper review and on TVC Breakfast this morning. You're watching TVC Breakfast, and we're streaming live on YouTube. You can connect